Hey, so with all the craziness in DC, taking time to connect with your neighbors just feels good. So don't miss District Bridge's Art All Night, DC's biggest arts festival. It celebrates creativity, culture, and community, and it's returning September 12th and 13th across all 8 wards. You can find celebrations by District Bridges in Mount Pleasant, Cleveland Park, Lower Georgia Avenue, Logan Circle, and U Street. Dance to local bands and support local artists in your favorite neighborhood restaurants and outdoor spaces. It's way more important than ever to show our local business owners and artists that we see them and we support them. See the full lineup at districtbridges.org/artallnight.
What if making dinner was as easy as pressing play on your favorite song? It can be when you plug into an electric induction stove. Whether you're queuing up the meatloaf or the black eyed peas, an electric induction stove isn't just faster, it can save you energy and money too. And right now, the DCSU is offering a hot $800 off. Income qualified, no cost. These rebates won't last. Get them while funding's still available. So make the switch today. You've got the power! Visit dcscu.com/electric. Today on CityCast DC. You might not think of DC as a city with a thriving literary scene, but it is. Not only is the world-renowned National Book Festival happening here on September 6th, this Saturday, but according to writer Hannah Greico, DC also has a robust community of writers, one that I'm personally trying to tap into and learn from. So I called Hannah up to get her best book and poetry recommendations from local DC authors. Oh, and stick around because CityCast DC's Annie Reese will be joining us for a conversation with Ethan Downs, the founder of Backroom, a new social media app. Today's Thursday, September 4th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. Hannah, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk today.
Thanks for having me.
So you write Spotlit, which is City Paper's column on books, authors, and DC's literary scene. When I think of posh literary destination cities, I definitely think of places like Paris or New York or London. But in your mind, is DC a literary hub?
I think it is. And, I come from a bit of a different background than some writers in that I started writing really late compared to most. I was in my 40s when I started writing. And so I came into this without expectations or even knowledge of the scene or what any of it meant. When I started writing, I just got to know the people that were around me. I got to know some local groups like Barrel House and the Writers Center. And so I just slipped into this literary scene, not realizing how amazing it was, what a gift it really was, because I was in my own head. When we start writing, especially at the very beginning, when we're just emerging, it's such a solitary act. And you don't think about community when you're first writing. And then as I got to know this community, as I attended readings and got involved with organizations, I realized that DC has an enormous community. And this was before COVID when it shifted. And we can talk about that later on a little bit, but it's still going strong. And so, yes, New York has a strong scene. And I think the West Coast has some good hubs as well. I think Portland and San Francisco and LA. I don't know. I've never written in Paris. I can't speak to that. I do know London, of course. But DC is actually an incredible community, very strong, very welcoming, very inclusive. There are a lot of independent presses here, a lot of writing organizations, a lot of opportunities for workshops. There are readings every day, like multiple readings every day. So many good independent bookstores. If you're outside the writing scene, I'm not sure you'd realize how incredible a place DC is to write.
I almost want to back up a little bit. You said that you first started writing when you were in your 40s. How did that happen?
Yeah, I never thought of myself as a writer. When I was younger, I went to theater school after college, and then I became a public school teacher. Then I became a mom and I stayed home. And my plan was always to go back into the classroom. But one of my kids had a lot of unexpected needs. And some of those situations were very, very hard. And I was very isolated. And so I actually got into this purely by accident. I wrote a little piece. It got a strong response from the audience. Many, many people came up to me and said, where else have you published? What have you done? And I didn't know what they were referring to. I was like, what do you mean published, right? So I reworked the piece and sent it to the Washington Post, and it got in. They accepted it. I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Let's make this happen. But that shifted over the course of a couple years, this understanding, maybe a little too late, at how public freelance writing is and how people will find you. And then tough stuff can start to happen with that kind of public recognition. So I started shifting into creative nonfiction and fiction, and then moving into the literary world, because no one sends you mean emails when you write a poem or short story the same way they do if you write a piece for the Washington Post, right?
One of the unique things I would imagine is true about being part of a writer's community here in DC is that there are so many books written by journalists and historians and government officials who write about their experiences with DC as a kind of backdrop, and maybe they get these big six-figure book deals out of it. But I don't know that I see a lot of books that are written in or about lowercase W Washington. One of my favorite books in the last few years, Yellowface, I think is one that did it very well, where it's just this story about two writers unfolding that happens to be unfolding in the district. There's no real reason for it to be in the district other than I think the author is from DC. But would you agree with that? How do we make sense of the fact that so often when people are writing about or in the district, there seems to be, they're not writing about what it feels like to just be a local person in DC?
I think the reason people have that idea is because of this idea we have about what books even are. So I'm coming from a very different angle. It's true, Hillary Clinton has a huge autobiography out, right? But you'll have huge famous politicians, and they have a lot of people buying their books to boost their sales. And I don't mean Hillary Clinton, but I mean people in general. Politicians write books for political reasons, and then they have people buy them. They have lobbyists who have a fund to buy them, and it pushes that book out and it gets really well known. And they almost all have ghostwriters, right? And then we have journalists who are amazing at writing nonfiction, journalistic work, but that is not literary work, right? And my forte and what I write about in my column and what I love and what I write now primarily myself is literary writing. And so I'm talking about novels, memoir, short story collections, essay collections, poetry collections. And there are so many novelists and memoirists and people like middle grade and YA writers, poets, so many in DC. And they write about DC and the surrounding area a ton. And Baltimore too, it stretches up to Baltimore and heads up the East Coast. And so there's actually a ton of work. You'll find little hints of DC in Amber Sparks' work. She's an amazing writer. She has done short story collections and has a new novel coming out this fall, and she lives in DC. Shayla Sabri, an incredible poet and essayist. It seeps into our work. My short story collection that just came out this month has pieces of DC in it and has a moment at Gravelly Point in Arlington, right? This happens all the time in literary work. But I think it can be overshadowed on the news. It's much easier to get visibility and PR if you're writing something interestingly controversial, right? Versus writing a novel. So I would argue there's tons of DC on the page, but you got to go to the independent presses. You've got to go to interesting little niche markets. You got to go to YA and middle grade, short story collections, essay collections, memoir, stuff like that.
I'm glad to hear you give YA a little bit of love. I read some YA. I feel every time I admit that, people look at me funny, but a lot of interesting YA out there. People shouldn't sleep on it.
Well, YA and middle grade and graphic novels, let's be real about what's happening as kids are aging. I'm a college professor and I have 3 teens. I know how hard it is to get kids and young adults to read. YA is not what when I was a kid it was, right? There was barely any young adult and middle grade stuff. And it was really kid-like when I was young. It's really good. It's a hot market. Adults are reading it too. Then it heads into new adult. We got college age stuff. It's some of the best work is happening in those markets. Some of the most interesting work because it's still selling well. And so there's more opportunity to get in there. I have a friend who has a middle grade book coming out this year. Looks really cool. That market is there. So, and I think it's easier. It's still easier to get kids to read than adults, bizarrely enough. So, I think it's important to remember that. Yeah.
At Mosaic Theater, royalty, fate, and passion collide in the thrilling new play, Dodi and Diana. This is not just another historical drama. Egyptian actress Samira and her husband Jason are marking the 25th anniversary of the tragic deaths of Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed. But what starts as a night of royal obsession and remembrance quickly becomes something much deeper. Their own marriage is put to the ultimate test as they dive into a complex exploration of love, sacrifice, the stories that history chooses to remember, and the ones it doesn't. Dodi and Diana runs September 4th through October 5th at the Atlas Performing Arts Center. You can get tickets now at mosaictheater.org. That's mosaictheater.org.
For nearly 40 years, Food and Friends has delivered hope and health across the D.C. region with home-delivered, medically tailored meals for neighbors living with serious illnesses like HIV, AIDS, diabetes, cancer, and more. This October, you can be part of that mission by joining Move for Meals, a month-long fitness and fundraising challenge. Walk, run, or bike wherever you are. Track your time exercising via the fitness app Strava and raise funds for neighbors in need. Every $10 you raise provides one medically tailored meal, ensuring that more people facing serious illnesses receive the nutrition that they need to heal. Help us reach our goal of 20,000 meals. Sign up today at p2p.onecause.com/moveformeals or visit foodandfriends.org and help us deliver hope and health one meal at a time. Hey, when someone else's negligence changes your life forever, figuring out what to do next can feel overwhelming. You need lawyers who won't back down. The NACE Law Group has been winning serious injury and wrongful death cases in D.C. for decades. They don't just settle, they fight for real justice, and they're not afraid to take cases to court to get it. You might remember them as Paulson and Nace. It's the same trusted lawyers, just a new name. If you need someone in your corner, reach out to NACE Law Group for a free, no-obligation consultation. Visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com or call 202-463-1999. That's 202-463-1999.
Who are some of DC's best literary writers? Give us your Mount Rushmore, past and present.
Okay, I'm not going to say best because honestly, there are so many.
Or most exciting, maybe.
But I will say some people I love. I already said Amber Sparks and Shayla Sabri. They're both incredible. Shayla's got 2 books coming out. I'm writing about her for City Paper this fall, and Amber after that as well. Shayla is a poet and essayist. She's a professor at GW. Zach Powers, the new executive director at the Writer Center, he has a novel coming out this fall called Migraine Diaries with Jackleg Press. They are a local indie press. I love the DC small presses. They're so great. Carolyn Bach is an amazing writer from the area. Let's see, Patricia Quarrell. I think I'm saying her last name right. She has a memoir that just came out called Women Surrounded by Water. Michelle Evans has a new poetry collection out called Pearl. I mean, these are just, there's some real emerging writers in addition to established, and that's incredible stuff that's happening there. Additionally, we've got Melissa Scholes Young, who every other year puts out the Gravity series anthology, where you get all these DC writers, like all the established writers in DC and then new ones too. This combination, these anthologies of women writers. Washington Writers Publishing House puts out a few books every single year that win their contests, and they have an anthology. I have a poem in coming up about looking at America through the DC lens. It's really cool. So there are just so many. I could go on and on. I could list off my friends one by one because we're in series together. We're in reading series together. We're in groups together. We're always at conferences and that kind of stuff. And there's just so many.
If you had to choose one book or piece of writing or media thing that every Washingtonian should read, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. Okay, realistically, I'm going to go back to Shayla Sabri, Field Study. That is a prose poetry collection that I keep with me at all times when I'm writing. It's just an incredibly inspiring book. Came out a few years ago, and I'm excited about her new work coming out because of how good that book was. And she's also a wonderful colleague and teacher. She's really great. She was on faculty at my MFA program. I think that's it. Field Study by Shayla Sabri.
That is a good recommendation. I will definitely have to check it out. Are there books that take place in DC that people should know? If you're looking for a book that shares the backdrop of this city that we all love?
2 books that came out in the last few years that took place in DC. Admit This to No One, a short story collection by Leslie Pietrek. She recently moved away from DC, but she was here for a very long time, an incredible writer. That short story collection is a bit politically charged and really interesting. She's an incredible writer. Also, Melanie Hatter's Malawi's Sisters, another very intense novel. I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to do any spoilers on that book because it's so good, but it is very timely of difficulties related to being Black in DC and the police. And so I think that is a book that everyone should read. It was given to me to do a review several years ago, and it was so good. And that's how I met her. And she's an incredible writer and member of the DC literary community as well. Really cool person.
One of my favorite genres to read is memoir. It's probably my favorite genre. And I get so excited when I'm reading a memoir of somebody that I maybe didn't know had a DC connection or lived in DC for a while, and it turns out that they do. One that I'm thinking of is the memoir of Kathleen Hanna called Rebel Girl, where it turns out she spent quite a bit of time in DC. I have no idea. So I'm reading about all these experiences that she had at places like Black Cat, and it's just phenomenal. Are there any interesting DC-based memoirs you can recommend?
That's a little harder, though. I can't say enough good things about Patricia Correll's Woman Surrounded by Water. That is a memoir that I recently read, and I'm very picky with my memoir. I really love extremely literary memoirs. I like really good writing that is less autobiography and more true memoir, where we're really diving into the personal, and the writing is exceptional. And Patricia Correll is an emerging, I don't know if she's emerging after this great book. I guess you're no longer emerging, right? She's a memoirist here in the area that just knocked my socks off.
What about poetry? You've mentioned that's one of the genres that you really are down with. How about good DC poetry?
There's so many poets in the DC area that, oh my goodness, it's hard to even to list them all. But like I said, Michelle Evans, her new book, Pearl, is fantastic. If you have heard of the independent press, Riot in Your Throat, Courtney LeBlanc, another friend of mine, she started a DC-based poetry press, and it's doing so well. She is killing it. She writes poetry and has a ton of books out of her own, but also now is publishing many collections a year here in the DC area. Rose Solari is a really wonderful local poet. There's so many. Oh my goodness. Shayla Sabri, that's a biggie. She's so good. Poetry is, I don't know, maybe it was my first, and it was like my introduction to DC because there are so many poets here. Truly, I think that might be where like the foundation of DC, the literary world, began. When I think about like Gargoyle, for example, Paycock Press, one of the very first literary magazine, one of the oldest literary magazines in the country, and one of the very first here in DC, and an independent press. Richard Peabody founded that. He's like one of the foundational members of the DC literary community, and he's a poet, right? And so poetry, I think, is sort of, that's where the roots of this scene even, that's where they began.
Okay, so if folks want to be tapping into DC's literary scene and literary community from the perspective of they are a writer, whether they're a first-time writer, a newbie writer, they want that kind of support, what are some resources for them to be tapping into?
Okay, so I've said a few of these already, and I really do mean this. I would start with the Writer Center. It's based in Bethesda, but it's a DC area thing. The Writer Center has classes, workshops, community events, free events. I teach there regularly. I do conferences there regularly. It's run by an incredible staff who they just welcome everyone, no matter what stage that you're at. So you'll have people who have never published a poem in their life, but really want to try, and New York Times bestsellers, and everything in between. And you'll see just incredible stuff happening there. A lot of classes online if you can't get into Bethesda or into DC. So I would start with the Writer Center. It's where I started a million years ago, and now I work there often as an instructor or panelist. And then also the Inner Loop. My very first reading ever was at the Inner Loop. All of these little, it's like a spider web of connections, but it's true. I'd never done anything like that. I went and read another essay. I just published a couple pieces. I read at Inner Loop, and then that's where I met Zach Powers, who is now the executive director at the Writer Center. Everyone's at all these events, right? So you meet people, and he was like, I really liked your essay. And we became friends. I met other people and friends with the people who run Inner Loop now. And this is how it is. I came in knowing nothing, and now everyone I know is just because they're wonderful. This is just a city full of kind and warm artists of all types, but for me, of course, primarily of the written word. And they're so welcoming. And so I went to a writer camp, and then I went to this reading over here, and I met all these people at this conference. That's just how it is. And I remember physically being invited to sit at the Barrel House conference here. It was at George Mason's campus at the time in Arlington. Now it's every year it's at American University. There was a group of people I didn't know, and they're like, "You want to come have lunch with us?" And I was like, "Oh, there's room for me at the table." And then it hit me what a metaphor that was and how I wanted to continue that for other people. And that's what I've done. And that's what I see around me happening all the time. Interloop, the Writers Center, DC Writers Room. I think you pay a monthly fee, and then you have like a place for workshops, and you can work there. There's like a place you can go in DC, the DC Writers Room, where you can connect with people and learn from each other. But there's so many things like that. There are reading series all over the place. I ran Readings on the Pike for several years, which was in Arlington. There's the Reston Readings that's out in Reston, but it's like all this DC web all the way around the DMV area and up toward Baltimore. So I would start there. The Writers Center, Interloop, DC Writers Room. I would start there. Washington Writers Publishing House is a really good press to know because they do events. Wiro Books, the Washington Independent Review of Books, is a website that you can read about all these writers. They do a lot of wonderful reviews and interviews there. We have so many resources here to not be alone. There's a DC Binders group on Facebook for women and non-binary writers. And it's like one of the reasons I stay on Facebook. Like, I don't really find a lot to love on Facebook, but the DC Binders is a way that I connect with other writers in the area as well.
Oh, I am in all the Binders Facebook pages. They're so useful. So one of my last questions for you is that I know the DC's National Book Festival is coming up on September 6th. First of all, are you going to be there?
I can't be there because my book launches that night. And so I had an online launch, and then the 6th is my in-person launch.
Oh, subtle flex.
So I'm not going to be at the National Book Festival, though I know tons of people who will be there. But yeah, it's a pretty exciting event. I'm sad to miss it. I didn't know when I scheduled my launch. It was the same day, but that's all right.
Having been there in the past, what do you think is the best way to experience BookFest in your mind?
It's a tough one. I will say that it is a very exciting festival, but it's also enormous. It's the biggest one I've ever been to. And I've been to a lot of conferences and festivals as a participant, like on panels and leading workshops. If you want one of the big names, the last time I went there, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was there. And I wanted to see her very badly. She was in an enormous room, but the line was like 5 hours long. And I would have missed every other writer. And so what I started doing, and this was early on for me when I still didn't really know the scene very much, and I've kept this as a method for these larger conferences, is I look and see who's in the smaller rooms. Like, there'll be a YA author I haven't heard of, but her book sounds cool, right? And that room isn't filled. So I'll go listen to her and I'll be like, she sounds great. And then I'll buy her book and have her sign it. And I can get through that line in 15 minutes instead of 5 hours. So I started going to the less well-known, right? The less famous people, and found those talks, those Q&As and readings to be really high quality, really exceptional. And I think that was like my intro to the independent press world, the indie publishing houses, because that is the area that a lot of art is being made that is not as capitalistic in nature. Because indies are never going to make tons of money. It's just rare for that to happen. So they're putting out the art that they really believe in and love, and that the artists themselves, the writers, have a lot of say in from start to finish. So I think if you go to a big conference, like, once a year they have this enormous book festival, think about what you really want out of it. If you want to see this one famous writer, that's who you'll see then. You won't see anybody else. And that's fine. You just have to be prepared. Bring a lot to do in that line. I literally spent 2 hours in that line before I gave up. And I was just working on my novel. I was like sitting there on my laptop, waiting, hoping to get in. And I didn't even know if I was going to get in. That's how long the line was. And I was like, what if I miss everybody? So I ended up leaving and not seeing her. Those rooms are really big for those big famous people, right? So you're probably going to be in the back. You have to think about what you want. If you are a writer, what's going to be really helpful? You're probably going to learn a lot more about craft and about publishing and about writing itself if you go to some of the smaller rooms and see some of these up and coming writers who aren't Supreme Court justices or whatever, right? That's my advice is find some of the local writers, some of the DC areas, go to the panels where you can hear lots of different people talking about their experiences. That's what I recommend.
That is great advice. And I have to say, congratulations on the book launch. Tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, thanks. My book is called First Kicking the Knot. It's a short story collection from Stanchion Books. It came out on the 12th of August. I had my online launch, a Zoom launch, and then from there, there's sort of a book tour that starts. My book launch is the first one's kind of like a cozier private thing. It's actually in my backyard. I'm having like a big party for it because that's my friends and family coming. And then from there, I'm heading out. I'm working around my schedule of teaching. I teach at Marymount University. I teach writing there. And so from there, I'll be traveling up the East Coast, Philly, Lancaster, moving up into New York, Connecticut, those kind of things, Baltimore, of course. And then back here for People's Book in Tacoma. I'll be here in a couple of weeks. I'll be at Old Town Books in Alexandria with Amber Sparks. We're talking about short story collections. When you have 3 kids and you have a job, you have to make your book tour piecemeal thing. So it's like a week at this college here, and then a weekend in Philly, and then a weekend in Connecticut, that kind of thing. So I'm excited, though. I always help everyone else get their books out. I finally have my first book out, and that's a good thing. It's a good feeling.
You deserve all the good feelings. Congratulations again. Hannah, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you.
And now please enjoy this sponsored segment with CityCast's Annie Reese in conversation with Backroom founder Ethan Downs about a new social media app called Backroom and why he's hoping that it'll be a place for people to connect, have civil conversations, and find resolution.
Hey, executive producer Annie Reese here with Ethan Downs, the founder of Backroom. Hey, Ethan.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. So first, I want to start with the basics. What is Backroom and why did you feel that it was needed?
So Backroom is a collaborative platform that turns meaningful conversations into community-driven solutions. It was kind of a slow process, but the idea finally clicked one night when I was listening to a debate on student loan forgiveness. And you have both sides making really great points, but then it just kind of ended. And there was no, they gave their closing remarks as to why we should agree with their side, and that was it. No steps forward, no kind of ideas for what comes next. And I feel like that was just like a huge missed opportunity to have 2 people with such cumulative knowledge and then not even discuss any tangible solution. And I think that this is the need that I think Backroom can fill. Backroom puts people into a room, which gives them a focused place to talk, debate, argue, discuss, whatever you want to call it. And then uses AI to synthesize what is said and turn it into a clear path forward for the community to act on.
Explain the concept of rooms in more detail. What type of rooms exist on the platform and who can contribute to them?
Yeah, so a room is simply a focused conversation around one specific topic. The idea is to avoid the chaos we often see on social media where discussions jump around, quickly lose direction, and more often than not seem to turn into just trolling. So by creating a contained space with a clear goal, we make it easier for people to stay on topic and for our AI to analyze the conversation to suggest a solution based solely on what is said in the room. And so they're small by design, usually 5 to 10 people, so that everyone has a space to contribute and their voice can be heard. Again, right now on social media, it feels like it's very easy for people to get drowned out or just missed altogether. So by keeping the rooms small, it gives everyone a chance to share, especially when conversations are much more personal, as I think they often are in community-based topics. So then as far as rooms that exist on the platform right now, we're piloting some different rooms related to DC topics. So we have one on RFK redevelopment, the cell phone policies for school, and I think what is the obligatory topic in DC right now, which are bike lanes. And so once those discussions wrap up, Backroom's AI will analyze the room's content to distill the conversation into a concise, actionable solution for the community. The goal isn't to win an argument, it's to build something together. And as far as who can contribute, the platform is live and open to everyone. So anyone can join an existing room or they can start their own room about a topic that they care a lot about. So neighbors, activists, local officials, creatives, subject matter experts, which we have a lot of here in DC, I feel like. We really just want to build a platform where everyone can contribute their unique perspective.
Interesting. So what's next for Backroom, and how do you ultimately want it to change life for people in DC?
Yeah, so right now we're still kind of in the early testing stages. We're trying to really refine the user experience and then just grow the number of rooms that are on the platform. We are working to roll out an audio chat as well as a live Q&A and an interactive roundtable tool to make participation even more dynamic. We're also adding some engagement tools like ways to track ideas, rally support, and connect with local partners, so that the proposed room solution becomes a result that you can point to and actually see. As far as how Backroom will change life for people in DC, people here are already doing the hard work, collaborating with people with diverse perspectives, trying to find creative solutions, having uncomfortable conversations, and really driving change on everything from local to national issues. And I see Backroom as a tool that helps facilitate the parts of this community work that only humans can do. The brainstorming, sharing personal experiences, doing the kind of research and critical thinking that truly require human insight. We want to bring together all those people, the local activists, the ANC commissioners, the teachers, the entrepreneurs, the builders, the lawyers, on and on, all the people who live here in DC. We want to bring them into one place, center the discussion on a single topic, let them work through it, and then leave with a path forward. And I think that is what excites us most, is we feel like we're giving people a platform to use their voice in a context that will lead to change.
Ethan, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Annie.
Again, you can check out app.backroom.cloud/backroom to learn more. We'll have the link for you in our show notes as well, so you're just a click away. Thanks for listening.
That is all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our great morning newsletter. And support our work by becoming a CityCast DC neighbor. Go to membership.citycast.fm to join. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.